If there's some way that we can point out to people who are eager for any truth that they can lay their hands on by saying, go slowly a minute, look at this. Do you see that that doesn't fit? Look at that. Do you see how that's impossible? Look at this. Do you realize how there's something here that doesn't feel right? Can you kind of get that? And we have to point these out to people.
So at this time, we already had quite a few spheres coming in. In 2012, hundreds of these spheres, the size of the Moon, Jupiter, and Neptune, started to come into our solar system.
Hey, Bill, let's try and bring some sanity and some clarity and utility to our community. There's work to be done, real world work. Bill has brought something into the alternative community conversation pit. And when he had the talking stick, what he did was he brought up this thing, that this kind of illness that's wrong with our community. And of course there is that's the phrase called UFO disease. And how that haunts us. And again, you know, everybody needs to make a living while we are still in the matrix.
UFO disease is another way of saying you're being egotistical. You're allowing the ego to run, to make your choices for you, and you don't have integrity anymore because you're more interested in the reward than the journey that led you to receive it.
You know, he took up the talking stick, and he's kind of letting us know that there's a lot of distraction and people, so much, I feel there's a lot of wasted energy.
Absolutely. Wasted energy is what a lot of these systems are. That's what divide and conquer is all about. Because we have a finite resource on this earth, and it's our attention and how present we are and what we do with that. And wasting our energy, taking that away from us is the most disempowering thing possible.
Again, to me, Corey's and Bill says this, he's trying to take care of his family. And that's why I don't want to make it about personalities. Because if Corey is doing very well, then that's because there's an audience for him.
If Corey is doing well, it's because there's an audience for him. That's right. That is a truthful statement, but is that something that we want to actively support? Or perhaps actively not support? I think that the audience that Corey has, they're not his audience members because of an authentic message. They've been sort of roped into it, and unfortunately either through poor research methods or just a lack of understanding how to formulate and figure out a situation, what you need, evidence, proof, correlation, something. In Corey's case, something at all would be good. But if you don't have something like that, you need to make a distinction between this very probably not being real.
I feel that part of the agencies, by distracting people in ways that for some of us are like, oh my God, oh, what's going on here? Where they're almost trying to get us to separate in a very disdainful way. It's just like, hey, these freaking idiots, they just can't think for themselves. You know, the sheeple, okay?
More divide and conquer, more excellent knowledge of our psychological responses to certain stimuli, a really well-built system. That's what I see. The ability to divide us and subdivide us into these small little chambers where, if you really look at it, the same thoughts circle in these chambers, in these groups of people, and they must be well-orchestrated thoughts because they hook into our psyche very easily. They stick with us, and we support them even often without doing any research to check their validity at all. We repeat these talking points, and we can find ourselves in several subcategories, but usually it's along one branch. The right-left divide is a great one. And then in between those two divisions, there's more subdivisions within there, which can go further and further, all the way to where you get to the point that you probably hold a lot of dissonant thoughts where certain subgroups you identify with conflict with other ones, even though you sort of believe in some and not the others. And none of it is really authentically your ideas. It's just ideas you've heard and agreed with because they sounded good, not because you went and looked and did the back searching. Because it takes time, and we're very busy. We work 40 hours a week minimum, or a lot more, and I think that's the point of working that much, because you're distracted all the time, and all you want after work is a cookie, or TV, or a beer, or whatever. Not to actually sit down and research and see if the headlines that you saw for 20 seconds or 30 minutes on TV have any validity in reality, by doing your own research. And I think that's the thing that's going to change a lot of what's going on here, is that people are starting to do their own research. They're starting to catch on that what they felt innately was incorrect, actually is incorrect, and we can back it up, and we can start doing this stuff for ourselves.
There's a separate narrative, and that's one of the reasons why there's so much pressure on people like Alex Jones and that whole movement, because it is a narrative that the people who find that narrative finds it's a lot closer to reality than the mainstream narrative, which is the Matrix reality. The Matrix is largely a media event, because that's why the tubes are there.
I think that the idea of the Matrix is a good idea, because it's a good analogy, and it's a way to shift your mind. But it also is too dichotomous. It's too black and white. Along with the divide and conquer tactic and the separation and the sub-separation of ourselves into all these little groups, there are different levels of understanding all along there. So it's like it's less like there is the Matrix and there isn't the Matrix. There's the Matrix and then there's deeper in and deeper in still. The Matrix is all about subcategorizing us based on injected ideas that would reflect on a person who is attracted to them, which means if they know you're attracted to it, they'll know how you respond to it, and you become even more predictable, especially since these ideas aren't your own, and so you don't have like the depth of knowledge and understanding of how they were crafted. You just pick up on them and react to them. It's like putting chemicals together that you know will do certain things. So these different divide and conquer tactics that put you into echo chambers, that inject thought constructs that cause you to be a predictable reactor, because certain key phrases will literally trigger you. It's like we're literally being programmed, and you can say a couple things and somebody will respond in a predictable way. And I think this is the biggest thing that we need to do to break free of it, is just self-awareness, self-analyzation, understanding your reactions, and if you're feeling emotional, you need to recognize that, because you're not going to respond with rationality or logic. You're going to respond with feeling, and feeling doesn't understand that stuff, really. It grasps onto the first thing it gets, but that's not often the right thing. So we have to be very careful on how we allow ourselves to be prodded and poked, and how much prodding and poking we do.
People who are still taking their cues from the Matrix, anybody who's involved in any of the stuff that's seeping out like a cesspool from the mainstream media, there's we have to be able to see that as it comes out there, and the reason why we do that is because that behavior is AI guided.
But again, so we're going back to why we're being subdivided, why divide and conquer happens. It's all about control. It's all about guiding us with the least effort possible, which means getting us into a very, very predictable pattern, which is why we have all these subdivided categories, because it really delineates who you are, and it's very easy to predict your movements after that. I wouldn't necessarily say this is AI in the traditional sense that people understand. We're not looking at a sentient being. We're looking at a very, very smart tool, pattern predictive tool, programmed with knowledge that I am not available, that I don't know. I don't know that much about psychology myself. But we're looking at tools that humans are using. So yes, they are very fallible, and that's why, while they excel at predicting us when we become predictable, they don't excel when we don't. And a lot of people are slipping out of that, because we have a lot more knowledge available to us now than we used to. And so it's a lot harder to keep us in these small little predictable boxes. And again, I think that's one of our winning moments.
I mean, there are people who really think they've left the Matrix, and they're not. Because, unfortunately, like to me, when people are distracted by soap operas, One Life to Lead on the Secret Space Program, when people are drawn away from that, that is a Matrix creation. Again, the Matrix extended into our community. It waves some money, some notoriety, security, and of course that the one thing that we always know the dark side from, the contract.
Yes, the contract, the binding agreements. It's in paper. I don't know what it is. I think it's something about adding an extra sensory input that makes it seem like the contract is now so necessary because it takes up 4 senses instead of 3. I'm not really sure how that works, but I agree that's an interesting tool, and it is a telling tool because people that want to get you want a contract. Contracts, society, all of these things are thought constructs that were made by people who understand us. They understand what we respond to, what our archetypal feelings are, and how we love to fill those roles and be proud of the roles. I think this is all. AI might be helping them do things faster, but it's nothing new. They're doing the same thing they've always done. That's why it feels very stale and old, and it's easier and easier to catch on to now. But it still works, and especially for the people that aren't self-aware. Society is a thought contract. It feeds off of us. It doesn't exist unless we uphold it. And we need to get more people to understand that, because we can shape society to anything we want. We just have to support the things we like and ignore the things we don't, and they'll go away. Because they need attention to live, to function.
We can go on YouTube, which is supposedly our media, and an important event to happen tomorrow, blah, blah, all these, words like alert, emergency, these, to me, words that are the equivalent of shouting fire where there's no fire in a movie theater. And with freedom comes responsibility. Now, of course, to me, we have the freedom. The fact is, we better exercise the responsibility quickly, or this irresponsibility will be used as a bludgeon against us.
Responsibility. I see a lack of responsibility today, especially personal responsibility. We like to make everything somebody else's fault because it makes us feel better. I'm not really sure on the motivation. I know I feel better when it's not my fault. It works, and what it leads to is just people taking actions and not thinking them through or using empathy before they decide to act, because a lot of times they're not responsible, so the consequences almost don't matter. Being careful what you spread. I think the responsibility is on the audience as well as, and probably more so on the creator, the content creator, to ensure that what is being put out there is vetted, is well researched, and it's something that should be shared and isn't a waste of time, because that's harmful. What Corey is doing is harmful. It's taking people's time, probably some people's money, a lot of energy, and it's making them wait for blue people in spheres that are never going to show up and never going to help us and never make your life better. We have to ignore this because it is a drain on our energy.
I'm talking about a market. I'm talking, to me, Corey, Goode, and Wilcock are a market, and the people who feed the market. And until David Wilcock found the good times, and to me, kind of, selling his soul.
David Wilcock didn't sell his soul. He sold his brand, and that might be worse. Because selling your soul hurts you. Selling your brand hurts everybody who believed in your brand. And that trust relationship you built up for years, I believe, in David's case. Building the name that led to people thinking of a good researcher and an honest person with integrity. And now, he's sold that name for money. And it's too bad because it's taken away one of the few finite resources we have. And I feel that that's something that should be stood up against and not let quietly slip by. Because that is detrimental, and we can see that, and we know it. So we need to say, let people know our feelings on this, and they can judge for themselves, absolutely. If you think you can read these type of accounts or watch these interviews that have no actionable information at the end, and often just encourage you to sit on your ass and wait for somebody else to save you, I don't think that's a healthy thing at all.
David Wilcock is one of us. And when he was back in his researcher days, he was dangerous. Now he's neutered. He's under contract. David Wilcock has been neutered. And to me, that's a spook thing. Basically, in my opinion, he got spooked.
I don't know. He might be, maybe he got spooked, or maybe he just got some money and was tired of holding up the the flame and not really seeing any change. Because back when he was writing books, there was a much less active community than there is now, which is kind of ironic because the community that's built now is probably exactly what he would have wanted back when he was writing his books. And now he's, as you say, under contract and becoming entertainment, not infotainment.
Well, here's another thing also. I mean, because one of the things comes up is things of authority, who's going to lead, whatever. It depends on the environment. It depends on the situation. Let's say you go to a city, you're from a city and you want to go on a jungle hike. Okay? Now, if you go from the city and you take a walk in the jungle, it could be really, really bad. But you have a jungle guide, and this is an experienced jungle guide. He knows how to take people through it and watch out for them, keep them safe. He's got the ears. He knows how to do it. And he can, teach you that. Well, during your little tour through the jungle, that guide is like your ultimate authority. And you will benefit by, provided he's competent, and in this instance he is competent, you will benefit from that. And making him or her the alpha person to direct your energy and to really cue off of is brilliant, and how we operate in dynamic human time.
This follows a concept that I learned in the military, where we designate certain people SMEs, subject matter experts, and rank and position are kind of secondary to skill and knowledge. So what we found is that we recognize that appointment is trumped by experience and knowledge. And I think that's a very important lesson that needs to be carried out a lot more. Now the problem is that people get into these positions of authority and they start to like the perks and the benefits and the feeling of authority, and the ego takes over, and then all kinds of strange things can happen. Integrity gets lost very quickly. So how do you stop that? It's one of our human failings. I'm not really sure.
Bill Ryan got the talking stick, and he goes, something, I got a little issue here. And like I said, if you're thinking only at the people level, it looks like Bill versus Corey Goode. But when he brings in Richard Dolan as a kind of like a supporting thing, you realize this is about what I would like to think is the hygiene of our community, and especially the communications. Right now, our communications are full of noise. And to me, clearing out the noise would not only assist us, but it also will get taken more seriously. I mean, please understand, when the controllers look now and they see rabble, and we are exhibiting certain rabble-y kinds of behavior, a little self-awareness, and we will not be rabble.
The signal-to-noise ratio it's a two-part responsibility. It definitely is the content creator, but it's also the audience, and it involves doing work on not only researching the ideas you presented, but understanding yourself enough to know when you're being emotionally manipulated. Understanding what a logical fallacy is, it's so important.
Because to me, what is really important here is whether or not Corey is telling the truth or not. For me, now, from one perspective, of course, it matters. Oh, is he telling the truth or not? But here's the thing. Here's how it kind of cuts through. Let's say Corey is telling the truth. All right? Let's say everything Corey says is absolutely true. What do we have to work with as far as ground crews doing something right now here? I mean, this is what I'm talking about as entertainment. If he is telling every single word is true, I still see no value to the community trying to build something new. I see a distracted part of our community held in thrall by the next installment, true or not. So this is the point I'm trying to make, that it isn't even the falsehood, which is another story. But to me, to our community, it's just that even if that was truth, that it would have utility to us. That whole what is the utility of the story?
That is an excellent question. What is the utility of what we're being told? What is the intent of what we're being told? Might be a good one too. What is the outcome? Did you learn a story about a guy and some cool shit he did that will never apply to you, and you'll never even see proof of it because he said that you won't? How does that help you? How does that make you better? Were you entertained for a brief time? That's okay. That's not a big deal. It's okay to be entertained. But does it give you any actual item? Are you I think the only thing it actually does is it makes you hold out hope for an external savior, which means you'll do less, and you're now disempowered. So in my mind, this is a net evil, a net bad, a net negative. This is not a good thing, and we need to be aware of this stuff. We need to keep on it.